I'm Nick Miles, and in the early hours of Wednesday the 11th of July, these are our main stories. Relief and joy across the nation as divers in Thailand rescue all 12 boys and their football coach from flooded caves. The US government says it will not fully comply with a deadline to reunite dozens of immigrant children under the age of 5 with their parents. President Trump says his meeting with the Russian leader Vladimir Putin next week may be easier than a summit with NATO allies starting on Wednesday. Also in this podcast, as NATO leaders gather, we hear from the Estonians who work within shouting distance of their Russian counterparts.
In military jargon, Andris Vist is the most forward of forward deployments. An Estonian border guard gently explaining to me how to avoid accidentally wandering into Russia.
And Ronaldo goes to Juventus. The World Footballer of the Year takes his ball from Madrid to Turin. It's a big deal.
He is a proven winner. Fits perfectly in with the club's ethos because the club's motto is winning is not important, it's the only thing that counts. If you apply that to Ronaldo, then it's a match made in heaven, isn't it?
But we begin in Thailand. With some of the hundreds of volunteers reacting to the news of the success of a truly extraordinary operation. The rescue of 12 boys and their football coach, who had been trapped in a flooded cave for more than 2 weeks. Once above ground, the last 4 boys were whisked off in ambulances to make the hour or so journey to join their teammates in hospital in the city of Chiang Rai. There too, people had lined the streets to share in the jubilation. Meanwhile, the man who led the rescue operation for more than 2 weeks, Narongsak or Sotak Nakorn, was finally able to celebrate.
Today, the Thai people, Team Thailand, government agencies and the private sector, together with the media and all the international support, no one thought we could make it, but we did it. It was a first for the world.
There's no doubt that it was a tense and extremely dangerous mission. One former Thai Navy diver, Saman Gunan, died in the caves on Friday when he ran out of oxygen. Let's get more from our correspondent Dan Johnson, who was at the cave complex.
There's euphoria here. This is a better outcome than I think anyone dared to dream possible. And the stress, the tension of the last 2 weeks has kind of been shaved off in layers as each of those ambulances has driven away from the cave site. And when the last one left today with its lights flashing, you could feel the relief wash over people here that finally this was over and that the outcome had been entirely positive. People are thankful, they are happy, and they are astonished at what has actually been achieved.
And Dan, the boys, what's happening to them? I gather agonisingly, they haven't been able to hug their family members yet.
No, this is difficult, but I think the officials in charge of the rescue operation just want to be careful. They've seen their families through glass in the hospital. They haven't had that physical contact yet. The parents haven't been able to grab hold of their sons and hug them close, the thing, no doubt, that they've been waiting to do for 18 days now. There are tests being done, blood tests, x-rays on their lungs because there's a worry that they may have breathing difficulties. They're sending off to labs in Bangkok to check for contagious diseases and infections. It could take 24, 48 hours to get that back. They are just being very careful about this, doing everything properly because they just don't know exactly what lurks inside that cave. But the boys are said to be in remarkably good spirits. At least they're together, and they now have been reunited as a team at the hospital, we understand, so they can share this experience with each other, and they can probably read about their own exploits through the media coverage and watch it on TV, and they can start to appreciate the life they've been given back, really, after 18 days underground, 13 lives that can now restart.
And Dan, you mentioned the sense of relief amongst the rescuers, but what about the wider impact across the country? I imagine it's really brought ties together.
Yes, it has. I mean, there's been a huge amount of support here in Chiang Rai in the north of Thailand, a huge operation around the cave entrance, and that's drawn in people from overseas around the world, but also from different parts of this country. It's been a huge effort by the Thai military, the police, the Navy, and a lot of different rescue organisations who've come here from all over to bring their expertise, but also a huge army of volunteers who've travelled, some of them a long way, to offer their support, their services. There have been people here cooking for the rescue workers, laying on relaxation zones where they could go and get a massage, even a haircut. They've built an entire village here because this operation's been running for so long and involving so many people. It'll take a fair bit of time for the whole thing here to wind down. There are another group of rescue workers actually leaving now, and they've been cheering and clapping as they walk away from this cave tonight. They're applauding themselves, really, because it's a phenomenal feat of human endeavour to have overcome every challenge that nature seemed to lay down in their way here. This mission looked impossible, but they've managed to find a solution. They've implemented it almost perfectly, and everybody today has got out alive. Not just the boys and their coach, all the rescue workers are safe too.
Dan Johnson. Well, let's hear from some of the people Dan was talking about there, who are being hailed as the heroes of the mission. Our correspondent Lucy Williamson met some of the divers who helped save the boys' lives.
Guys, congratulations. How are you feeling?
Exhausted.
Their elation hidden under a film of exhaustion. Eric, Mika, Klaus and Per arrived back from the mountain tonight. Rescue divers with barely words or energy to tell their story.
Yeah.
How did it go?
Good. Very good. We feel very safe. Now we need beer and we sleep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. These are the men who won against a mountain. Heroes from all walks of life, all corners of the world. United not in a single act of bravery, but in dozens of them. Their organiser, Narantorn Nabanchang, is a Thai rock singer who used her public profile to gather donations for the mission. Tanks, regulators and hiking equipment. I asked her what they would do tonight.
Celebrate. all country, maybe all around the world celebrate for us, for the team, for government, for everybody who has to work very hard.
Narantorn was so sure of success that before today's operation had even begun, she'd booked her divers on flights home tomorrow. They say faith can move mountains. Thailand chose to put its faith in the men who venture inside them.
Lucy Williamson. The fallout from President Trump's zero-tolerance immigration policy continues to cause controversy. After considerable pressure, he agreed to halt the process of separating children from parents who'd illegally crossed into the US from Mexico. But many of them remain apart, including 102 children who are under 5 years of age. As we record this podcast, a deadline set by a US court to reunite them expires in a matter of hours. And the US government says it won't be able to return all the children to their parents in time. Our correspondent in New York, Neda Tawfik, told me why.
The administration had to give a very detailed list of each of these cases. And so the reasons ranged from, the parents having a criminal history that brought up issues where they didn't think it was safe to release the child in their custody, or the parent was actually in criminal custody. And then they also said that in some cases, the adults that the children traveled with were actually not their parents in the end. The administration has been going through background checks, but also trying to conduct DNA tests as well. So those are some of the reasons they gave to the court for why they think, they'd have technically, in their view, met the deadline as best as they could. Now, the American Civil Liberties Union responded back saying, look, we understand that if a parent is in criminal custody, you can't release the child, but the government is putting up all these bureaucratic hurdles.
Meanwhile, there's been a defiant tweet from President Trump.
He was asked about this issue and the fact that the United States will miss the deadline, and he said, I have a solution. Tell people to not come here illegally. Now, I think critics would point to two parts here, the first of which is that people coming to this country seeking asylum, that's not illegal. They are allowed to come here to seek asylum. And secondly, these are children. They shouldn't be kind of collateral damage in all of this. So, again, all of this really is about President Trump trying to remain tough on this immigration issue to appeal to his base.
And briefly, Neda, the 34 that will be released today and the 4 children who've already been reunified, what happens to them and their families now? Where will they be held?
These children are being released now to the Immigration Enforcement Agency. And now the government has basically said that they will put ankle monitors on the families but will not hold them in detention.
That was Neda Tawfik. In this centenary year of the end of the First World War, one of the less celebrated roles played by thousands of Africans is being commemorated. They fought and worked as porters, hoping it would bring a move to independence when the war ended. Now, a piece of performance art about Africa's forgotten role is opening this week in London. Vincent Dowd reports.